Hello and welcome. For this one, I'm going to farm up a full set of synthesized ancient gear. Best used for fusion Ensnare Auras, in my opinion. I run fusion Ensnares on basically every map these days, but fusion explosives are also pretty handy. To get our full set, we'll have to hit the first map in each act, and then one of these three Act 2 maps, Tornado Highlands, Ramparts, or the Throne Room, a wave 25 clear on one of these maps for the helmet, a wave 14 or 25 clear on one of these maps for the other pieces. The hardest piece to get, in my opinion, is going to be the chest from Arcane Library. I'm going to start there, and then the boots are from Tornado Valley, the gloves are from Deeper Well. I'll head to Deeper Well after Arcane Library. Seems to be the other map that people have the most trouble with. For the helmet, I'm going to head to Ramparts. It's not the best loot modifier for the helmet, but Throne Room is significantly harder, and Tornado Highlands is a much longer run, so I think Ramparts is the move for the helmet. As usual for these videos, I'm going to bring Fusion DSTs, but I'm going to scale my stats back quite a bit for those. 5500 power, more like what you'd see as an entry-level set for your Fusion DSTs. If you have 5500 power or so, 5000, 6000, you'll be fine for this. And then I'm going to bring standard defenses across the board, otherwise the DSTs are the only fusion defense. My traps are going to be 4k power and range with 2700 in fort and def rate, much less important, those stats. I think this is good for range and power. Likewise on the Aura Monk, about the same here, 4k power and range, about 2500 or 2700 on the fort and def rate. And then my beamer is much like my apprentice here, 5500 power, 3k on the other stats. My Waller is coming in a little heavier. I've got about 6k fort on her, of course, for the Waller. The main stat, the only stat that matters, is your Fortify. During the combat phases, I'll be playing a Boost Monk with a Striking Gemstone on every map aside from Deeper Well, where I'll use a Speedy. Alright, let's jump into Arcane Library. One of the hardest maps, for no good reason. I do have a good strategy. I think it's been consistent with me for no crystal damage, which is kind of my standard these days for these build videos. So I'm going to start off on this carpet here. This is heavily inspired by Mushroom Cake's speed build, for what it's worth. He's got a good speed build that works a lot better if you have more fusion defenses. So I'm going in the middle of this blue carpet here with a DST. I'm going to aim it straight on, as evenly as I can straight on. You can use the floor tiles and stuff as a reference. This DST is going to cover a few things. It's going to cover this lane straight on, and it's going to cover a good bit of around this corner here. And here you get a random ogre spawn. At some point, about 215 enemies or so left in the wave. That random ogre can come from literally any spawn door, so you got to be ready for it. And these two lanes are short, so this DST offers extra coverage to these two lanes and also this lane there. And then we're going to add some more DSTs to this mix. I'm going to tuck right in to that DST and bring it back around, and I'm going to cover it with the right side of the aim. I'm going to cover that spawn door there. I'm going to make sure to cover the whole door and into the pillar past it, because Jinn can kind of fly up and to your DST stack if you don't have a DST covering the whole door and a little bit next to it as well. Same deal here, mirroring the other side on this spawn door with the left side. Now I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to turn around and cover the other side of the map with some DSTs here. Left side of the aim on this spawn door on the left there. One more for that side on that same door, same exact way. And then I'm going to do a third DST right here, and I'm going to aim this one the same way as well. There's a reason why I'm going so heavy on that side. These three DSTs are going to cover these two doors. This door in particular always gets ogres. It always gets an ogre at least, or two. If the random spawn ogre comes out of this door, you all of a sudden have like a couple ogres running up this lane. It's good to have some extra firepower on that spawn door. That said, this last DST is going to cover the opposite side. Only one really needed for this opposite side over here. Going to go into the pillars. Same reason. Want to catch any Jinn that flies stray into this lane, but that door is only going to need one DST to cover it, and that'll be basically our weak lane. So if you're going to focus a door with your boost monk, make it that one, but you'll have to be with your head on a swivel for that one random ogre spawn. I think it's about 215 enemies left or so. These all fit rather comfortably on a 5 DU buff beam right here. I'm going to drop that, and I'm just going to max it out right away. The thing to check is to make sure that this DST is actually getting it, armor on the towers. That's the easy thing to check. Now I'm going to set up the rest of this stack over here. I'm going to do some auras. Now I'm going to stand on top of this tower stack with a striking gemstone to boost these auras. And I'm going to put them down rather specifically in a certain way that's going to allow me to get to them easier a little later to upgrade or repair if I need to. So I've got the plates staggered a little bit between these two DSTs, and I'm going to be able to actually target them. Now, if you bury auras in the middle of a tower stack because those floating icons are gone, they're a lot harder to get to. So it's easier to do it like this. And now I'm going to drop an Inferno. This I can drop right in the middle. If you drop it and then don't move your cursor, switch to the upgrade, you can upgrade it right away, and now you don't have to fish for it through these towers. The auras or the traps are a little easier to target anyway. And I'm also going to drop a darkness trap right on top of that Inferno. Don't need to worry about that darkness trap. I'm not going to need to get to that later anyway, so that's fine. And this is the full setup for this side of the map. Basically, you're going to live here, blow up these auras and traps, and they're going to cover a good bit of the map. A good bit around here, pretty much everything you need to cover here, but they're also going to cover this corner here, and they're going to take care of a lot of the enemies coming around this way as well. All right, similar setup on this side. So I'm going to do the auras first. And the nice thing about this build too is, unlike most maps and most builds, when you add a second player, it actually gets easier if you do a certain thing. I'll tell you what that is in a minute here, but I'm going to do the auras here. Ensnare Electric close to the crystal. I'm going to do a buff beam right here, just a 4DU buff beam, just like that. That's going to give me some nice range on the auras, and I'm going to drop a couple traps. I'm going to add them up right here just to make sure they actually get triggered. There's going to be some big range coming out here. These are going to get triggered, guaranteed. If they're tucked into the crystal, it's not always a guarantee that they're actually going to get triggered, so I put them up on the stairs a little bit. That way their trigger range bleeds out quite a bit, and then I'm going to hit this beam with 4 upgrades just to give some extra range to the traps and auras. Finally, I'm going to swap the beamer out of the deck because that is the last buff beam I'll need, so I'm going to bring the Waller in. Now, there's a few things I do over here that, you could change just a little bit if you want, but this is what's been consistent for me. I'm going to do a 3DU EV wall here, and then I'm going to do some little ogre bait walls right here for the app. 1DU walls here. Now, if an ogre does come around on this lane, it's gonna hit this wall before it hits your crystal. It'll stop here, swing, hit this wall. It'll be a last resort distraction from your crystal should you be sleeping at the wheel and not realize that you've got an ogre hot on your heels on this side. I'm gonna do a couple upgrades on the Inferno and a couple, that was the blocking field. Yeah, make sure you hit E to know what you're actually targeting. Don't make my mistakes here. Couple on the electric aura as well. All right, I'm gonna head back over. This side is completely done. I'm gonna do something similar on this side here with the Waller out. I like a 3DU EV wall here. Covers this gap pretty nicely, and you're not gonna see any enemies sneak by. Now, the darkest trap's gonna do quite a bit of work. A lot of enemies are gonna walk up to these walls and just kind of be blinded and stand around and do pretty much nothing, which is what you want because otherwise they're pretty dangerous. So there's a couple mandatory reflects on this tower stack. You really want one here. If you don't have this one, you're probably going to get webbed by some spiders over here. And then this reflect is going to look weird, but it does a couple things. I start on this intersection here, and then I come diagonally over this way, and I angle it toward the DST stack like this. 1DU. Now, when these ogres come out of this spawn door, they're going to throw kobolds, and that kobold is going to come right at you. If you have this reflect right on your tower stack, what tends to happen is the kobold blows up right here, does a bunch of damage to you and your DSTs because they blow up on a fuse, on a timer, I guess. With the reflect here, it bounces off of this corner and does nothing, does not harm you at all. So here's what I'm going to do with this 5DU now. I'm going to use 4 of it to make a wall right here. I like this wall here. It can be pretty close to the crystal. It's not a big deal. It's really just to block enemies that are coming up that are blinded, minor enemies. Ogres, because we have 3 DSTs, for me at least, they don't make it. And I'm going to do a reflect here. I like a reflect here. I think it's just as a handy last resort for if the darkness trap resets and you've got maybe a mage or I don't know, an archer on your wall. They can maybe shoot over the wall and hit the crystal. I'm going for 0 crystal damage, but if you feel like you don't need that reflect, you can put it here. I don't love this gap here, but so far it's been okay having that gap here. That is the entire build. So I'm going to swap in my boost monk here And I'm going to do some upgrades, show you the priority that I think is best. We've got the most important beam maxed out already. We've got the damage dealing defenses, aside from this electric aura, upgraded. The first couple of upgrades, the first 2 or 3, are your highest value. Every upgrade is worth 10% damage, but they cost more and more. So I'm going to spread this even along the tower stack here. Just make sure that, yep, the DSTs all have 1. And for the remaining mana, I'm going to hang on to this mana. What can happen is Dark Elves rush your tower stack and hit your DSTs for a bit of cleave. So I've got a striking gemstone on. One thing you want to do is check your spot, make sure everything is boosted. I can look at the walls and the ceiling and see, yeah, I can see the green line and the blue line. I know the auras are boosted. The traps are huge. They're easy to see. Here's how I start every wave. Overdrive on the Apprentice. Swap over to the Monk, G it up, tower boost. Now I'm gonna hopefully see my Inferno get triggered in time for the app boost to not wear off. Looks like the Darkness is triggered, but the Inferno's not. It's kind of a chance for it to happen or not happen. A Dark Elf usually triggers the Inferno for me. Better sooner than later. The Apprentice boost lasts 8 seconds. If the Inferno is triggered during that window, it does seem that the bonus sticks. So this always happens for me at wave 23. This wall tends to take some heat. As a 3D wall, for me, it doesn't go down with 0 upgrades and this Fortify. It may go down this run. The last 3 runs in a row, it was fine. If it goes down for you, what can happen is you'll lose the beam. So if you find you have less Fortify and you can't have that wall stay alive, it might be better to just keep it off the beam, let it go down, and then replace it between each wave. The Darkness Trap is going to keep your crystal safe for the most part. But again, for me, consistently 3 runs in a row, no crystal damage. That is my standard for the builds for these videos. All right, I'm going to let wave 23 run. If there's a Jinn, yeah, they sneak through the blind spot. Eventually, they get close enough, a DST takes them out. Sometimes they sneak through. But I'm going to let this run, and if anything interesting happens, I'll let you know. Maybe I'll just continue to let this run. There is that Ogre that throws the Kobold, boing right off the corner there, and then it disappears. And that goes down, that Ogre goes down consistently for me with 3 DSTs, slamming him the whole time. It's a long walk for him. But that Ogre is down, and that's it for now for Ogres. Another Ogre out of that door throws another Kobold. I can't tell if that's the random one or just another regular Ogre from that lane. Weird names. I can't even tell what that name is. I may get a random Ogre spawn. Oh, there's another one. He's coming out of the short lane there from that side. That Ogre is the exact reason, him specifically, he's why I have the wall there. He didn't take a swing that time, but it's entirely possible for him to take a swing. 3 DSTs end up taking him out with the tower boost before he even gets a chance to swing on my wall. But yeah, you want a wall there, I think that's best. I did mention that a second player makes this run easier if you run a specific thing. It can be a Squire or whatever can stay alive, but have somebody camp this crystal with another striking and then put those traps right here in front of the auras, and then everything gets blown up. Way bigger auras, it reaches way out back there. Everything gets CC'd. The Ogres go down a lot easier when they're slowed the whole time. You can probably go without these walls too and put that DU into something else, but that's the easy strat for co-op. So I've got 10,000 mana or so. I'm gonna max the beam as a priority, hit this wall with an upgrade, and then the other damage dealing defenses, I'll just upgrade them. Don't even know what I just upgraded there. Keep forgetting to hit E, but I'm gonna upgrade anything dealing damage. First and foremost, the wall. Geez, that wall's jacked up now, that's fine. And then I'll head over to the DST stack and pump this mana into the DSTs after I hit the electric aura. Let's do 1 on the electric aura. Let's do 2 on the electric aura as soon as I can target it. Hit E, it's the electric aura. All right, and I'll just repair the Ensnare. No big deal, it's already maxed out. I think I can upgrade this Inferno. There we go. And then I've got 3,100 for the DSTs. Spread that around. All right, I'm gonna G up and run the next waves. And if anything interesting happens, I'll cut back to it. But if not, I'll just see you at the end of the run. Short lane Ogre here. Needed that reflect. Bounced off that Kobold, and I'm gonna just attack this guy. He's gonna 2-shot my wall, but he'll die before he gets to the crystal. That is the reason you want the wall there. That's really the main function of the walls. Yeah, I got the shortest possible lane there for that Ogre spawn. That's why you keep an eye out for that random Ogre. it was about 215 or 220 enemies left, but that's exactly what that wall is for. It did its job. Also this reflect. So to clarify the position of this reflect, not only does it block those, but if you get the ogre here and he does manage to throw a kobold, there's a better chance that you'll be covered with this reflect. I haven't needed one here yet, but that's going to be about the end of this build. Kind of okay with losing this wall. My main concern was not taking any crystal damage, and that was mission accomplished. So if you have fusion ensnares and fusion electric auras and you run this build, you can ditch most of the walls and add an 8th DST and you'll be fine. That's what I do when I speed farm this map. I do 8 DSTs. I just double up on the back row there, do one this way, one that way. Same layout. Basically, it's basically the speed build that Mushroom Cake does. So yet another, oh, that's a good upgrade level, but bad defense stats. I need range. I really want range. And you also get a minor helmet here, but that's the chest from Arcane Library. Let's head on over to Deeper Well for some gloves. All right, let's get some gloves. Deeper Well is usually a pretty quick run. Small map, fast run. Gonna start with a flame burst. Right in the middle of the staircase, flip it around, aim it directly at the crystal. That's gonna cover all the lanes pretty nicely there. And 2 DSTs going down, one on either side of the flame burst at the top of the steps. I'm gonna make sure the right side of the aim covers right against this rock here. Because what can happen is you get ogres coming up right here, and if they stand here and beat on your wall, if you don't have a DST targeting them, you might be in a bit of trouble. You'll see. And then I do the same thing, opposite side, and cross them up. Crossing them up, I think, is good practice. It helps to cover you for dark elves and spiders and stuff a little better. Gonna do a 4DU overclock beam on this tower stack. Make sure everybody's on, perfect. And then I'm just gonna max this beam out right away. And while we're at it, since I'm over here with the EV, couple reflects to protect the tower stack and me, because I'll be standing back there with my boost monk. All right. Auras. I'm going to do a full aura stack right here on this little pedestal. Ensnare electric and strength drain, and then I'm going to do a darkness trap there too, just because. Well, the darkness can go anywhere around here really. I'll put it down here. That's fine. Something will trigger it, probably a spider. Let's do a few on the electric aura, a couple on the strength drain. All right. So this aura stack is getting this beam now, which is important. I'm going to swap the beamer out for the waller because I'm going to use 2 5DU EV walls and a buff beam from her for the armor. So I'm going to drop the first node of the wall, a bit of a gap from the rock and not quite on this black line, a little bit in front of it. This gap between the stairs and the wall is going to ensure that ogres don't cleave the crystal. Going to cut in about a width of one of these tiles. Same deal over here, about the same distance, cutting in about the same amount. And that is going to allow me to get both of these walls, just barely, but both of them on a 4DU reflect, a 4DU reflect would be huge. A 4DU overclock beam. You might have to finesse it a little bit, maybe move a wall a little bit, but check and see both have armor, looks good. Level that beam up to give them 60% armor, good to go. So now I've got armor on the walls as well as a strength drain. Lots of protection. 3DU left, and I like to use that for reflects. I go across the front like this here, and then I do 1DU reflects like this. You don't have full coverage, but the coverage you do get covers the kobolds that get thrown by ogres that are far away. What they end up doing is throwing a kobold right about here, and if you don't have that reflect, the kobold makes it to about here and explodes in midair and does a bunch of damage to you and your tower stack. And I don't like that. So these reflects help out with that quite a bit. All right, I'm going to level up these towers next. Let's do 3 levels each on the DSTs, 3 on the flame burst. All right, and I can do 1 and 1. So these are level 5 and the flame burst is level 4. That looks good. All right, I'm going to swap in my boost monk here. Make sure he's got a speedy, and he does. Standard start for the waves here. Overcharge, overdrive, whatever it's called. Boost monk, tower boost. It's funny, the flame burst is like a machine gun with the overdrive. But I've got at least one DST firing down each lane, so those far side ogres there, they do get targeted. And see where he ends up? Yeah, if you don't have a DST with a wide angle being able to target that guy, and he has fire immunity, you might have a problem. You might have to DPS him yourself. But that's the biggest problem, I think, with the build. So the walls take some heat if there's an ogre beating on it, of course they do. What you can do, though, is you can just pop down real quick, boom, hit it with an upgrade, now it's full health, back to your tower stack. Just like that, if a wall gets low, I just pop down, throw an upgrade on it. I keep the walls at level 1 for that exact reason. And then, you know, if they both get low, I can go do that. It's pretty safe to come out of here and do that. I usually don't have a problem with that, but that's how I run this. It's a pretty straightforward run aside from that. So if anything interesting happens, I'll cut back. Otherwise, see you at the end. Coming up on the end of Deeper Well here, no surprises really. I actually didn't have to pop down and upgrade a wall at all since wave 23. I'm at the end here, and that wall's about halfway. That's about the lowest any of them have gotten. If you end up with a couple Dark Elves bouncing around on your head, you can either move up on your tower stack a little bit, or just bat them off of you, and you'll be fine. One last Ogre here at the very end of wave 25 for the win here. KOs most? Not me, though. All right, pop in the chest for the gloves. Let's see it. Big gloves, shiny gloves. There's the helmet. You get a primitive helmet here, too. All right, gloves. I can already see their trans. That's not too bad. No defense rate. This is okay, actually. For a hybrid Ensnare boost monk, you don't need defense rate. On an Ensnare Aura, I'd like to see a boost roll, but vitality and skill are the minimum. Not bad. All right, let's move it on to Tornado Valley. All right, let's get some boots here. This is going to look a bit like part of the setup for Arcane Library. Going to go in against the rock here. Drop my first DST. Right side of the aim, going to cover that spawn door right there. Right next to it, I'm going to do 2 lines of 4 DSTs for 8 total. They'll be on a 5DU overclock. Same deal here. Right side, covering that spawn door there. And then because occasionally I'll get a Jin boosted orc just coming screaming down this lane here, I'm going to turn a couple DSTs in a little further. That way they actually cover the whole lane on the left there, just like that. Now you're going to have 3 or 4 DSTs hitting any ogres that come out of those lanes. It's going to be plenty. They take double damage from the DSTs. Plenty of firepower, so I wouldn't sweat that. Same deal here though, just looking to cover basically these 4 covering those 2 spawn doors and those lanes. That copter lane is actually empty. You don't get copters. Don't know why that's still there. So I'm going to do 4 more DSTs. 2 of them are going to basically cover the crystal. The way to see if it's covered is there's a little pot on the left side. Just want to make sure that's actually covered. The little pot is being sort of just touched barely by the aim on the DSTs. That way you'll have 2 DSTs taking out copters in that 1 copter lane. No problem. 2 is going to be plenty. Same deal here for this one. And for the remaining 2, I'm going to still cover this side of the map, prioritizing these 3 spawn doors, but I'm going to turn it to the right a little bit. That way we get more coverage on this lane, and all 3 doors will be hit by all 4 of these DSTs, no problem. We'll just have 2 of them prioritizing copters and the other 2 not. So we won't have to worry about Jin and Sharkin and that sort of stuff. All right, get the EV out, 5DU overclock going down here. There we go, max it out. 2, 3, 4, 5. Everybody's on, everybody gets armor, it looks good. All right, found the hole. If you don't put this reflect as close to the rock as possible, what ends up happening is spiders will find the gap between the rock and the reflect, throw a web in this hole, and you'll get webbed. So what I suggest doing actually is going back a little further even, starting it there, because you'll be fine with a bit of a gap on the other side. It's actually totally fine. But they tend to fish through the hole there, the crack between this rock and this reflect, if you don't have it there. Kind of okay to be exposed here. Haven't had any issues with that, but what I'm going to do here, start on the little stick and then do 1DU reflect, a 1DU reflect across like that. You get spiders over here throwing webs and some over here, and that's pretty much it. Now I'm going to do a reflect up here. This might look like a waste, but on the rare chance that you get an ogre out of that lane and it lives long enough to walk its way down here, it's going to throw a kobold at you, and if you're not protected, it's going to do some damage. It's going to hurt. So that's why I like that there. And then I'm going to do an Inferno just like Arcane Library. Hit it with some levels, 4 levels there. And then this is a little tricky. It's a little weird to do this, but I generally I parkour over to this here and then jump down. And that ends up being easy. And that's the same layout as the Arcane Library, where I do an Ensnare, move the plate, Electric Aura, 4 levels on that. So the beam should be maxed already, and then 4 each on the Inferno and Electric Aura. And you do your Speedy. So you get the Boost Monk out, Speedy Gemstone. I've got 1 DU left. What you can do with that DU is put it anywhere that you might have an issue if you think you'll have one. I'm just gonna stick a mage wall, an apprentice wall right here. Give any kind of boosted orc a target to hit that's not the crystal. This is the only place I've ever had an issue, and it's not every run, so I'm gonna stick that there. I've got plenty of mana left to dump in to my DSTs. I'm thinking 2 levels each for them is gonna be good. All right, and we're ready to go. Make sure your Boost Monk has a striking gemstone for this, just like Arcane Library. The easy way to tell if they're boosted is I look up and see I got a green line and a blue line. I'm boosted. The Inferno trap is huge, so swap over to the Apprentice, Overdrive, Boost Monk, G it up, Tower Boost, good to go. It's a long run, 1,183 enemies, but it's rather uneventful. The most exciting thing that might happen is a boosted orc coming down that lane. That may never happen for you, but I've seen it happen once or twice in the dozens of runs I've done testing these builds. If you have Fusion Ensnares and Electric Auras, you don't need the Inferno. This goes way smoother. Likewise, if you have more power on your DSTs, but I guess that goes without saying. Either way, this run is pretty bland, pretty uneventful, just lots and lots of enemies, so I'll cut back. If anything interesting happens, I'll cut back to it, but otherwise, I'll see you at the end of the run. There's that kobold I was talking about. That Reflect saved the day. All right, pretty sure nothing else is gonna happen now, so I'll see you at the end. All right, finally coming up on the end here. Killed some sirens over here just to keep an eye on the lane, but you don't have to do that probably. Let's look at the boots. Hey, not too bad. 333, no vitality, but that's good for maybe some explosive traps. Also a militia helmet. Meh, not too bad. All right, off to Ramparts for the final piece, our helmet. Similar build here for the Ramparts. Looks a lot like Tornado Valley, just a little bit different though. 10 DSTs instead of 8. I'm gonna start lined up right here with this little block and do 3 DSTs facing straight back. Not gonna worry about where the aim is specifically. And then I'm gonna have these 2 DSTs just cover that little bend around there where you can see the enemy path coming up. 2 just like that for a total line of 5 DSTs on this side. And then I'm gonna do 1 more DST facing straight on. And then I'm gonna do 4 DSTs facing the crystal right here. And they're gonna cover this lane right back there. Every once in a while you get like a double ogre spawn back there, so having 4 DSTs cover it is pretty nice. So I'm gonna stick the Inferno right here in between some towers. 4 upgrades right away. Swap over to the Aura Monk. Similar deal here. Ensnare and the Electric Aura staggered a little bit. 4 upgrades on that. Drop a 60 Reflect right here. It needed 60 Reflect, unfortunately, with 10 DSTs. And then I've got two Reflect beams here. That's an overclock, not a Reflect. 60 overclock. All right. You can do a Reflect beam right here if you want, and you'd probably be okay to do that to shoot some sirens. They all show up right there. Or you can play it safe and angle a couple of 1D Reflects in front of your DSTs to give you the most protection from spiders Usually not a problem either way, but that is your choice. And I'm going to go on to my boost monk here with my striking. The easy reference point for me usually is this building here, making sure I've got the blue line and the green line. Lots of mana to play with here. Going to dump it evenly into my DSTs here. And it looks like I'm good to go. All right, so normal starting procedure here. Overdrive on the Apprentice. This also gives your Inferno the bonus too, assuming it gets triggered. And spiders drop in on this map, as well as Tornado Valley, so you usually do get that. Gives you big damage on your Inferno. Makes the build a little safer, but that's going to do it for this run. This is the same deal sort of as Tornado Valley. You just got to let the map run and the build do its thing. So if anything interesting happens, I'll show it, but probably not going to. See you at the end. Easily the smoothest and least eventful run. Saving the best for last, I guess. But I got a helmet. Here it is, 307. Not terrible. It's pretty bad. You need range for ensnares. You just do yet another piece of militia. But that's going to complete the set. Gonna head back to the tavern. Thanks for watching. Any questions, by all means, lay them on me. It gets easier once you do have a Fusion Ensnare Monk and Fusion Electric Auras. These builds get way easier. You can pull the Infernos out of the ones that used Infernos. They get a lot easier the more Fusion defenses you get. But for your first set, at least have Fusion DSTs and go in. Give these builds a shot. Let me know what you think. Any questions, of course. Links to Twitch and Discord, as always, in the description. But yeah, comment away if you have any concerns. That's going to do it for me. Thanks for watching.